Hello, what is up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to or watching the Powercast. And today we will be recapping Power Book 4 Force Season 2, Episode 5. And the title of the episode is Crown Vic. And we are joined today by Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing today, Richard?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? And we are also joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How are you doing today, Dana?
I'm doing wonderful, working at full mental capacity.
Oh, that's good to know because I know you've been a busy bee this week, so I'm quite shocked that you still have energy to give.
Yes,
But
working
that's
the
good.
New York Film Festival. So, yay.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you're very busy at the moment. But yeah, we are back. I'm finally back on camera as well. My background there is falling apart, so you might see a blooper. Where a piece might fall down or something. So yeah, look out for that. It'll be funny. But um, but yeah, we are back to recap Power, and this was a very interesting episode because a lot happened. So there's a lot to discuss. And we're gonna, jump right into our takeaways because I know people want to hear what we think of what happened in this episode. But just a friendly reminder, please do leave your comments. We love reading them all. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be covering, BMF as well on this channel, on the main channel when that comes back. We cover The Walking Dead. We cover all the Power universes and stuff. So yeah, definitely subscribe to the main channel for all of that good content. And you can also check out the sub channels too. There's Coalition Entertainment and the Coalition Gaming. The gaming industry is popping off right now. Spider-Man's coming out, Cyberpunk, Idris Elba and all that, in Cyberpunk. So there's some good stuff coming out. So look out for the gaming content. Also, you can also check it out on the website where we post, written reviews and stuff like that. That is thecoalition.com. So yeah, had to do a bit of housekeeping there, but I won't take up too much time. Let's get right into those takeaways. And I believe it is Richard Bailey Jr.'s turn to go first this week. So when you're ready, Rich, take it away.
Okay, first and foremost, shout out to everybody that left the awesome comments last week. Definitely enjoy hearing what all you have to say about the show. So let me just kick things off and say, in my personal opinion, this was an outstanding episode of Force. I know a lot of times we complained about this show last season. I had absolutely nothing to complain about with this episode. This was an excellent episode, and I like the fact that in the previous episode, we were told that, Claudia and Vic agreed to kill Walter. And then immediately in this episode, it happens next. You see, I like that they didn't take time to drag this stuff out. There were consequences right away. So let me just give the writers, everyone over here working on Force, a thumbs up, round of applause for the excellent episode, for sure. So my three takeaways for today. First and foremost, I'm going to start with Tommy. And you saw in this episode that after finding out what happened with D-Mac in the previous episode and him killing Seamus, he basically is telling D-Mac the entire episode he needs to stay inside. Obviously, JP does get involved in this conversation when he sees that Tommy puts his hands on D-Mac, basically try to tell him, listen, I need you to listen to me. Then, of course, he gets angry. They have their little back and forth. And of course, Kate is watching this. She is not aware of what D-Mac did, what happened with D-Mac. But she's just like, well, she obviously, because she loves D-Mac, she sides with her grandson. She does give him money to go to the store and basically tells him, oh, yeah, you can stay out as late as you want, so on and so forth. Because obviously, D-Mac is still trying to catch up with Genesis, his little love interest. Okay. So obviously, Tommy, he keeps telling D-Mac the entire episode to stay inside. So he decides when he hears about that, once again, that he got out, he basically sends D-Mac away. Now, at the end of the episode, we found out that he sends D-Mac to Great Shores Youth Academy. I am a resident assistant, so it is my job to basically make sure that D-Mac takes care of himself and stays on the straight and narrow. So maybe you will see him be in a future episode. You never know. But obviously, this is a way to basically get rid of D-Mac, to take him out of the line of fire, because they didn't want him talking to the police and being around when all this stuff is happening. Now, Kate, obviously, she thinks that Tommy killed D-Mac. When they tell D-Mac, they tell her he's gone, he ain't coming back. She because she knows Tommy, and she knows how much of a savage Tommy is, she thinks that Tommy actually killed D-Mac. So that basically leads to her relapsing and deciding to get high again. So this is going to be very interesting to see what the consequences are that come from this. I also want to give a special shout out to Mr. Joseph Sikora, because he was promoting this episode. I remember he had an Instagram post not too long ago where he was saying, I just really want to ask one question. Is Ghost dead or alive? And he made reference to this episode. So I'm not going to talk about Ghost, but I'm going to say very interesting with the trolling, because people are definitely going to think because D-Mac went away, oh, maybe Ghost went away too, possibly, right? But I don't know. Don't really care, because Ghost isn't a part of this show. This is Tommy's show. I just wanted to put that out there because I know people are going to be making videos talking about this after they watch this episode, and they're probably going to be hitting up Joseph Sikora as well, asking him what he meant. So let's see how that goes. But pretty much that was the extent of what happened with Tommy in this episode. Obviously, he wants to see Maria. And of course, we do see in this episode that Dr. Kendall, she finally breaks up with the doctor. And then Miguel proceeds to deal with the doctor in his own way, breaking his two hands. So I thought that was very interesting direction. Let's see where things go from here. But obviously, Miguel sticking up for his sister, didn't like this guy, so he did what he did. All right. Going on to my second takeaway of this episode, obviously, we're going to talk about the Flynn family, because this is the episode where everything popped off with the Flynn family. It started with Vic was questioned about Colin's death, and he refused to give them any information. He also did not give them Tommy, because Tommy was with him when they killed Colin. So meanwhile, they have this whole plan in motion where they know that Walter is going to have this dinner. And they basically have hired this new guy called Big Red. This guy calls himself the Apocalypse. I laughed when they made reference to the Four Horsemen, because you saw how easily they got taken out last season. So I figured this guy was going to get killed as well. And I was not disappointed to see that he did get taken out later in the episode. But pretty much, Claudia and Brendan Doyle and Vic have this plan where they're going to basically set up Walter and take him out, at this particular time. The problem is that they don't account for the fact that Uncle Polly is also there. And of course, Claudia, after she basically has her little conversation with Brendan Doyle, she basically was saying that she's trying to figure out what she's going to do when she runs the organization. He outright tells her, Dublin is old school. They're not going to let you run the Flynn organization. So as long as Vic is still alive. So basically, she does not tell Vic that they have decided to move up the attack, which Vic thought it was at 9 p.m. It actually was at 8:30. So they decide to move up that attack, and he just so happens to be there when all this is going down. You see Polly get killed. That was a very dramatic action sequence, I would say, with everybody getting shot, the music and everything. It was perfect. Then you see Uncle Polly falling into the pool. That visual was just like, that visual was on point. It's very, very graphic to see what happened to the characters, but I got to give them credit for that. Then, of course, here comes Walter Flynn with the shotgun, blowing people away left and right. He gets up to Big Red. He ends up shooting Big Red in the head, but Big Red does shoot him. Then he has this very intense conversation with Vic, and Vic is like, hey, and I have to laugh because the acting in that scene, I think it was pretty entertaining, but also hilarious because, Vic is cutting off his father, and he's like, oh, Claudia did this. No, you did this. I thought that was hilarious. I laughed at that, and then, of course, Vic finishes him off, shoots him, and, after he shot him, I want to tell you, I instantly thought of Gary Swaby and Dana Abercrombie because I'm pretty sure they were very entertained with the music they played right after that Trigger Man song, which I thought was pretty hilarious that they played that right after he kills Walter. So, yeah, it's very entertaining. I have no complaints. And then, of course, lastly, he does go back to address Claudia after what happened. And she basically says, Brendan is trying to tell him, hey, I told Claudia to tell you. And then she kills Brendan. So obviously at this point, Vic knows that Claudia set him up. And then he decides at the end of the episode that he wants to cut a deal to get full immunity. Obviously, he wants Claudia to go to jail. But of course, Stacy, she wants Tommy Egan. And she also wants Vic to get in with CBI. So I'm assuming that the next episode, Vic will try to align himself with CBI so he can try to take down Tommy. If you've been watching this show from the very beginning, Vic has never been a match for Tommy. Tommy could have easily taken out Vic at any point in time. So this is a bad decision by Vic. And I'm very curious to see where this goes because obviously I'm expecting Tommy to take him out. But let's see what happens in the remaining episodes of the season. And finally, my final takeaway of this episode. This is about the storyline between Diamond and Jenard in this entire episode. All right, now Jenard is still struggling. I did laugh at the scene where he begged his crew to stay loyal because obviously we know that Jenard has been through it this entire season, the ups and downs. So he does end up meeting up with one of, somebody who he was cool with back in the day, Manny. Basically meets up with her, basically steals her product and takes her chain, and then decides to pretty much he comes back to his crew and tell him that he got the drugs from Miguel. So I don't know how that's going to go down, in terms of if they start speaking about where they're getting the product from. That might be a bit of an issue. We have to see where that goes. But the main issue with this thing with Jenard in this episode, again, Jenard continues to spiral out of control. And you see in this episode, he decides to shoot up for the very first time. And of course, he does give that drug addict the chain, as payment for him getting access to the heroin. But he decides to shoot up in this episode, which again, we had the ominous music about to tell you this is a point of no return for this character. And what I like about the episode in terms of it being titled Crown Vic is because it's in reference to Vic finally emerging among his family, to the next level, but also because Jenard got high in a Crown Vic that the drug addict was in. So they were really on point with how they titled the episode. That was right on the money with that. But it's definitely an issue. So we need to see what happens with Jenard. Obviously, the last thing I will say about with Diamond in this episode, he does contact King Kilo because they spoke about forming a coalition. I want to give a shout out to Glenn Davis of the Boston Celtics because that's who basically is playing that guy. I didn't even know he was in this show until recently, so that's rather interesting casting. We'll see what happens with him. But basically, Diamond the whole episode, he doesn't want to go see Big Sid. Big Sid is their father, and then you find out in that whole backstory that his father despises Diamond because Diamond is the one that got Jenard into dealing drugs. And the thing about it is that while the end of the episode, Jenard and Diamond do make up, and Diamond does say, we're going to get you back involved with CBI again, Diamond has no idea of how much baggage is coming with Jenard now. The fact that he's been messing with drugs, which will be an issue. The fact that he basically stole Manny's chain. And I'm pretty sure that crew, they're going to have to deal with that as well. And then, of course, at the beginning of the episode, we saw Jenard's former crew who have now flipped to another gang called the RDs. I want to see more about what this gang is about and who is in charge of that gang. But basically, they have sided with this other gang. So now these are all enemies that Diamond is going to have to deal with. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic. But I also want to say this as the last point. In regards to Jenard and Diamond, what I find very interesting is that the previous episode, obviously, we saw Seamus get killed, right? Seamus's backstory is that his sister, basically, she ended up needing permanent care because she kept taking drugs, the drugs that Diamond was selling. Now Diamond is going to witness his brother, who is now a drug addict. And now you have the backstory of the fact that he got him into dealing drugs. So there's a lot of stuff that's about to happen with Diamond, I think, moving forward as a character. So I look forward to seeing what happens next. But yeah, overall, outstanding episode. And I think Gary Lennon is doing a great job as showrunner. But obviously, there's a lot of high stakes now in the storyline. So let's see where everything goes from here.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there. You dropped some nuggets that I wasn't aware of. You know, I didn't know that guy was from Boston Celtics, and I do like that you brought up what Joseph Sikora said about episode 5 too, because I wasn't even thinking about that, and that would be interesting if he's making reference to sending DMAC away, you know, and him possibly doing the same for Ghost. You know, maybe he went to a gangster academy, you know, or something. But nah, yeah, you made some great observations, you know, with those takeaways. So good job with that one. You were definitely paying attention, you know, extra hard.
There you go.
So yeah, we'll discuss more of that stuff later. But for now, let's hear from Miss Dana Abercrombie. So Dana, when you're ready, hit us with your takeaways.
Yeah, that was a great assessment. First off, I do have to make an announcement really quickly. To dive deeper into kind of the show overall and what it's doing, we do have a previous interview that we did with the 3 directors of this show. Also, you guys will see an interview. So turn on the notifications and subscribe. See, we have an interview with Lisa Demain. Lisa Demain directed this interview. She directed this episode. And we break down everything that occurred and what you can look forward to in the future. We do talk about the redemption story of Kate and Vic. We do go into how it was filmed and the inspiration behind the shootout. And we also do talk about DMAC, a little snippet. My thing was there ever a plan or an opportunity that they thought they was going to kill off DMAC? And it was very strong that he stays alive. So I wonder how his story is going to continue. He's not going to be like a throwaway character. He's going to have things later on that progresses. So check out that interview when it uploads. So put on that subscribe and then turn on the notifications so that you will be able to see that, because we break down this episode very well. This was an exceptional episode. I feel that everything that I complained about in season 1, and even kind of like a little bit in the first episode of this season, they all went away. And it's like, thank you for listening to us. And by us, I don't mean just us, I mean the fans. They knew that something was a little janky and a little funky in season 1, and they rectified that immensely. And it only took them to me, I liked the previous episode. I thought episode 4 was exceptional. This one, you're like, oh, you really upped the ante by moving the story along to the point where like things are going to happen quickly. I feel that this season we're going to get some moving and some shaking and some things are going to pop off. What I love is we're getting the old Tommy back. And that was anything. That's basically what we wanted with this show. We love evolution and we love growth of a character, but we still want, the reason why we fell in love with Tommy is because he is unpredictable. He has that chaotic streak. And there is that moment where we are legit scared of him. And that came out today when he was having a conversation with Kate, as you brought up. Remember, as you stated, he killed his father. He killed Holly. You don't know what he's thinking. And I think it was for the best, because Kate has a tendency to talk. You know, she is someone who is not the quiet one. She's not the stable one. And even though she is trying, and I am still pulling for her, even though she relapsed, I am still pulling for her. And I do want her to have that happy ending. And I hope that she does get it. But at the same time, I kind of understand if she has to die. But I do want her to be happy and to continue on. One of the things that really struck me, obviously this was the Dead Daddy episode. hence my name, Dead Daddies. Um, and I think that with the fathers dying, even though Vic killed Walter, in a way it was a sense of closure. He no longer felt like he was trapped by his dad. And what was very important to me wasn't the fact of I want to be a ruler. He went and was like, I'm done. I'm sick of this. And had Claudia not set it up for him to die, because that was her plan. Remember, she never relayed the information to Vic about the 8:30 move time. It was supposed to be at 9. They moved it up to 8:30. So I do believe that he was going to probably just walk away from it all. But once he found out, oh, she wants me dead, that's when he was like, look, I'll do anything you want. I'll turn her in. We're going to have a turncoat. Call me Benedict Arnold. I don't care because I'm done with the situation. This really makes the dynamic even stronger. It's not so much about who's going to be on top and who's going to be powerful. It is literally a life and death situation between these two. This is going to be a cat and mouse game. And this is when I hope it seems maybe, yay, Vic finally becomes a man. He today he was a teenager. Now can you be a man? Infiltrate the group, get them Tommy, get them Claudia, get them any information that you want. And also don't be so what's that word? Obvious about it. Because Vic has that kind of tendency where he stares off a little bit too long and it's like, well, he's planning something. So be sneaky, be friendly, but not over friendly. I just want to see how he's going to play his hand this one. Jenard is getting high and he's getting higher. You mentioned the chain, the situationship, the fact that he took Manny's chain. People can trace it to him. Manny can still talk. Manny's not dead. Her mouth or his mouth, their mouths move perfectly fine. And therefore they are able to speak. On top of that, I wonder if they're going to accidentally kill the white boy. I don't think they really gave him a name, but the one who set him up to get high, because he has the chain, I wonder if he is now going to be a mark. And I say this because, and this is what I love about this episode, we're opening it up. We're getting all of the streets and we are having shootouts. We're having, people being ambushed in the diner. Our precious diner finally has a purpose. It was shot at. He lived. Obviously, some patrons did not. We had the woman whose dad's name is Felipe. In the back of my mind, I was wondering, like, is Felipe a drug lord? Is he going to come back? Is it retribution for everyone? That's what you have to think. And I have not thought this way in power force at all. So now it really seems like, hey, are the people who they just slightly mentioned, are they going to start playing a role in the future? Is payback going to start coming back at each other? Who is this Felipe? He is in Mexico. What does that mean? So I really like how they're doing that. I thought that was just very exceptional. Another thing is, Vic did shoot his daddy, but I thought it was lovely that he shot him in the eye because we have an eye for an eye. I just thought that was like delicious. I was like, yay, give me symbolisms, give me metaphors, give me everything. So I do like the fact that that is happening right there. And then kind of we have to talk about the relationship between Jenard and whatchamaface, the Diamond, sorry, or David, as he's really known, Mr. David and Jenard. Yes, it's really interesting and it's really lovely. Like we have a reunion. What are we doing, man? Let's just be friends again. But he's a mess. Not only is he dealing with drugs, he shot it up for the first time. And the fact that they reiterated, like, ooh, look at this you got fresh arms. Look at this fresh skin. I'm starting to wonder, is that freshness going to last? Or are we going to start shooting it up more? I just could not, every word that they said, it kind of, to me, there was meaning behind it. So I wonder what is going to happen in that terms. On top of that, everything is a mess. We still have Merkovich. Remember the text message that he sent him before he went to go rob Manny? We have Merkovich. The team is still in shambles. Nobody trusts him. And what's worse is if you're going through it, that's cool. But the fact that everybody knows that you're going through it makes it even worse. I believe the name was Yo Yo or Yaya. Um, Remember Yaya Yo Yo? Yo Yo?
Yo. Yeah.
Okay, so Yo-Yo knows what's going on, and Yo-Yo's not messing with him, and they know that Miguel is not messing with him, and they can put, the chain definitely solidified that, oh, you're just robbing people now for drugs. And yes, it's a cold world out there, but they don't want to be involved in that. And then also on top of that, the gangs are so split. Remember, it was Jenard's old crew that shot up the diner. So there is no, let's bring CBI back together and it's a big reunion and we're holding hands and we're selling drugs and what was it? The Rainbow Coalition of mobsters, the Rainbow Coalition of the drug dealers that we're putting into motion. Yes, that can work for Diamond. Jenard is a mess. And Jenard and his own business could end up getting Diamond killed, which is why I don't like when you say make sure you take care of your brother. That's the same kind of energy as when you're watching a horror movie and they say, be right back. Are you gonna be right back? We all know how that plays out. So make sure you take care of your brother. No, he might have to sacrifice his life to take care of his brother because his brother is he's sloppy. This is a mess, and so we're in the jail system. We already had the guy who was in the wheelchair, who's working with that way, and then we have the Rainbow Coalition of drug dealers. Nothing really lasts in this kind of universe, or just in the drug market in general. In time, even when the Crips and the gangs came, what was it? The Crips and the Bloods came together. Remember during that historic thing? Gary knows what I'm talking about. He knows the hippity hops. That didn't last long either. So I wonder how it's going to go, and I don't think it's going to be as positive of a note that Diamond thinks it is, or David. So that's kind of my big main thing. There is also just a really quick side note. I love Kate, but what in the world is $20 going to do in any, what are we, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2025? What is 20? The boy is closer to 18 than he is of 8. $20 is not going to get him anywhere with Genesis. And Genesis looked like you have to pay money to just talk to her. You have to have something in your life going on. And $20 is not what's going to go on. So, yes, that's what I love.
You're absolutely right about that. To £20 with all this inflation, $20 ain't gonna do a lot. Same with pounds. Pounds, like over here, everything's gone up. Like £20 can't buy you anything anymore. So yeah, you're right about that one. But great takeaways. I completely agree with some of the things you were saying, like how we've got Tommy back. I definitely agree with that. This does feel much more like Tommy than in the first season. The first season, he was pretty much just unstoppable. Like he was an unstoppable force, just killing everyone. But in this, he's much more layered. We're seeing more sides of him. We're seeing the whole family dynamic as well. So definitely agree with that. And then also, Vic becoming a man. I agree with what you said about that. Like this was his kind of wake up, his defining moment. So yeah, definitely good observations there. So yeah, we'll have more of a. I do have some questions that are gonna directly pertain to some of the stuff you mentioned, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and give my takeaways first and foremost. So, just to kind of, piggyback off of what Dana was just saying with the gangs and everything, yeah, you are right. The Crips and the Bloods, they unified quite a few times actually. So it can be done, but in this situation, there's so much bad blood and there's so much turmoil, waiting to happen with this whole coalition that's forming and stuff. So I think this is going to be an interesting dynamic, and I'm glad that they've kind of, with the whole Walter death and everything, they've kind of cleared up a lot of space in the episodes for them to really dive into some of these other storylines now. And I really can't wait to see what happens with this new coalition, because they made it a point in this episode to have Jenard and Diamond's father passing away and everything, and of course that's always a heartbreaking thing, and it kind of brought them closer together just a little bit. But like you explained, I think it was Dana who said that it's not going to last, because the father specifically told Diamond to look after Jenard, or that he wishes he would look after him. And we see the current predicament that Jenard is in. He is spiraling out of control. He's getting worse and worse, every week. Now he's doing, like, he's getting the drug directly into his veins. Like, so once you get to that point, there is no going back. Like, you need serious help to get out of that. And you see in this episode, he was actually getting sick, because what starts to happen is, when you start taking that drug, if you stop taking it, you're going to get withdrawal symptoms, and your body actually gets sick because it needs more of it. So he was actually getting sick from not having the drug. So once he's at that point, it's not going to go very well for him. And I think the only person who can save him is Diamond. If Jenard does survive this season, then Diamond is going to be the reason that he survives. And it could be a situation where maybe Diamond gets him into a rehab, or, gets him some sort of like treatment or something, so that he can kick the drug habit. But heroin addiction is one of the worst ones you can have. Like, so, the possibility of him getting off that is very low. I think Kate actually has more of a, she has more of a possibility of kicking her habit. And that's one thing I wanted to point out too, is I feel like this season is doing a great job of showing the effects of, the drugs and everything. Because we have two concurrent, addiction storylines running. And yeah, I like that they do that to show you, both sides, because it's easy for the drug dealing side of it to get glamorized, and for people to think, yeah, this looks like a cool lifestyle to live. But when you see how it affects other people and their families, that that adds a whole nother layer to it, that shows you perhaps this isn't so cool, to do. So I like that they're doing a good job of showing both sides. I think Raising Canaan did something like that also. But yeah, so with Jenard, I think the whole CBI thing is going to be very entertaining to watch over the next few weeks. I think they're going to dive a lot deeper into this, and I can see many instances where there's going to be problems between Tommy and Jenard, and also I think Miguel is going to become a problem, and then also the Serbs, of course, because that's still a lingering problem that they have. And now CBI, Diamond and Tommy are going to directly inherit that problem that Jenard has with Merkovich. So that's going to be interesting to see how all of that plays out. So my next takeaway, I kind of mentioned it briefly, but like, I like that they are giving Kate her own arc, her own story arc in this season, because in previous seasons that we saw her in original Power and stuff, she's just a kind of a guest character that we kind of see every now and then, to kind of complement Tommy's character and show how chaotic he is, and how he was probably abused when he was growing up and stuff, because Kate doesn't she's not like a she's not your ideal mother, because she's a drug addict, and they were doing lines together at one point in the original Power. So yeah, I think she was really just there to kind of paint a picture in other seasons, but in this season, they are really actually creating a character out of her and giving her, meaning. And I think that was very important to do, because you have JP, you have DMAC, you have these, this other family that Tommy has found. So it was very important for her to be there to tie it all together and to have her story play out and to see how she reacts to, JP and DMAC. So I like that they're doing that. And it is kind of tragic to see her story play out, because in the previous episodes, she was desperately trying to make amends with Tommy and JP for being a poor mother in the past and for leaving them and stuff. So she was genuinely trying, to make amends for that and to improve her life. But now she's slipping back into her old habits, and it's because Tommy, who didn't benefit, he never benefited from her love and care and her being like a proper supportive mother. So he is living a very reckless lifestyle now. So it's like her past, decisions are kind of catching up to her and making Tommy go on this rampage. But also, there is Tommy just being a dick as well, because he could have told her that, I just sent DMAC away, but he wanted it to seem like he killed him or something, to kind of to kind of provoke her, or tease her or whatever. He didn't have to do that, but that's hey, Tommy's a reckless guy. He doesn't treat his mum very well. He's always kicking her out of his place and everything. So it is what it is. Like, and I think it's tragic because it kind of shows that disconnect that forms. So like if you have that, because I've had a similar kind of situation, with not being close to my father. So it kind of shows you like the disconnect that can arise when you are young and you're a bit neglected, and how bad it can go, because it's not the same for everyone. It can be different for certain people, the relationship, but if a child is neglected enough, and you have a parent who has their own addictions that they can't control, this is the type of thing that can happen. And that's why I feel like it's good to put this story arc in there. And like Dana said, I do want Kate to win in the end. I want her to integrate with the family and be happier. But as it stands right now, it doesn't look good. It looks like she's kind of spiraling out of control as well. And I want to see how far they actually take that, story with Kate. Are they going to go all the way and make her, have an overdose or whatever, or make some mistake that she can't come back from and she ends up dead or something? How far is it going to go? And we also have to remember that she was actually in Ghost. She made an appearance in Ghost. So I'm not sure when that happens, because obviously Tommy planned, he kind of planned that. So I want to see how that plays out, because he had her talk to Tariq in that episode and stuff. So I want to see if they show how that plays out, because that would suggest that Tommy and Kate do get closer together. They get a bit closer. So I want to see, how that is able to happen with where they're at currently. But yeah, that was just my second takeaway. So third takeaway, of course, the Flynn family. this was a big part of this episode, the most shocking part. And yeah, man, I can't believe they actually went through with it. Like this. Now, first of all, I do want to say that episode 5 in Power is usually when there's a big death. Like we've seen it quite a lot. In Ghost, it was what's his name? The father, Lorenzo. Lorenzo got killed off in episode 5. Um, I'm forgetting the other ones, but I know that episode 5, the mid-season, is usually always when there's a big death or something big occurs in episode 5. So it makes sense that it happened in this episode, but I was totally not expecting it. I thought they would wait till the end of the season for this to happen. So I was caught completely off guard by the fact that, they got rid of Walt. And I feel like it was very well done. But this whole portion, the Flynn family portion in this episode was amazing. Like everything about it, like the fact that, Claudia was trying to set up Vic to die, with Doyle. And then, Vic realizes this because the hitmen came early and everything. And just the shot of him in the car, being upset afterward, after the whole shootout and everything, the shot of him in the car, realizing what happened and that Claudia set him up, and then the moment when he goes inside to confront her about it, and then she chooses to kill Doyle to make it seem like she had no part of it, and then they give each other that awkward hug. But they're both thinking shit. They're both thinking, damn, like I have to do something about him, or I have to do something about her, because you see that they don't fully trust each other now. The trust is not there. It's gone. But that was an amazing scene. Like that was an amazing shot. Like that awkward hug, I think. So kudos to both of those actors. They did a great job with that. But yeah, like I just enjoyed the whole setup. Like even them bringing in, what do you call himself? Apocalypse. That was a nice callback to. Go ahead.
Big Red. Yeah, Big Red.
Big Red.
He called himself the Apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah, Big Red, the Apocalypse. It was a nice callback to the Four Horsemen, in the last season, because the Four Horsemen were terrible though. They got wiped out easy, and this guy got wiped out too. So I don't know if the next Irish hitman is going to be called Jehovah or something like that, but I hope that the next guy, I hope he lasts a bit longer than these other guys did. But yeah, like this whole portion was great. It was excellent. Even the way Paulie died, the fact that Vic was actually trying to save Paulie. Like he didn't want him to get caught up in that. And I'm surprised they let Paulie die, because they could have told more story with him, I think, because we know he had that son as well, the junkie son or whatever. So I'm surprised that Paulie died too. It's like they just completely wiped out half the Flynn storyline right there. What's up, Dana? Why you shaking your head? Chime in.
I strongly disagree. Remember, he had that monologue before he died, like the official "I'm dead" monologue that they gave him, which was basically, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And he said, that's what family does. That we fight, but we come together and we support each other. And he said, I'm willing to die for him. So he knew his fate. When you have the entire Godfather force coming after you, you kind of have to be like, I'm not going to make it. It's just him and Walter and Vic. So it was only those three against, the Big Red and his Apocalypse. So they knew. And Walter came to the understanding that even he knew, I'm going to die. He was just waiting for someone to pull the trigger the whole time. I think he was just hanging on to it. So yeah, they both knew at the same time, just as much as Vic knew that Claudia was going to kill him. as well. And he did not receive that phone call. Everyone knew in that moment, and they purposely made their choice. So that's when I think everyone accepted their fate and their decision. So it was nice because we didn't get any flip flopping. Yay! Boys were men today.
Yeah, no, I agree. At that point when he gave that speech, that's when I knew, he was probably gonna die too. But I just beforehand I wasn't, expecting Paulie to go because I thought he would contribute to Walt's downfall, based on what happened last week with that conversation they had when Walt let him go. But yeah, I think it was well done though as well. The deaths were well done, and it came out of left field, which kind of it's exciting to watch. When you're not expecting stuff like that to happen, it takes you by shock, takes you by surprise. So they did a good job with that in this episode, and Vic did get his moment of actually being the one to pull the trigger on Walt, and end his life. Like that was a very good moment. And then we have what comes next, where Vic Vic actually goes to the task force and basically says, I want out of this life, and he wants to cooperate. And they make it clear that Tommy Egan is the target, and he agrees to help them take down Tommy Egan. And this was a big, shocker, because it's like, and this is going to lead into, one of the questions I have. So, we'll head right into the question segment after, but, with him doing that, with him agreeing to, help take down Tommy Egan, it's like he's signing his own, death, his own death warrant. It's like, how does he come back from that? So we're going to have a discussion about that, because I want to ask you guys about that. But those are my takeaways for this episode. Those are my observations. And yeah, I mean, both Richard and Dana, they I think they kind of had a more structured, a better analysis than me. I can only add on to it. But yeah, those are my takeaways for this episode. And we'll head right into our questions. But Dana, you had something to say first?
I had. Can you hear me? Yeah, I had something to say because you triggered me, but like a good trigger. I don't know if you'll end up discussing this later. There was something that I wanted to bring up that I completely forgot because I love my metaphors. Ice cream. Remember how he stated in the previous episodes that all I wanted was the strawberry ice cream. And remember, consistently there has been strawberry ice cream in the freezer, and he's grabbed for that ice cream. Here's the one thing that I found to be interesting. During that argument that Tommy had with Kate, Kate snatched the ice cream out of his hands. And I'm being symbolic, and I like to read into things maybe too much. That was the sever of their relationship right there. Now, this was way before she ended up going into the room and relapsing. When she snatched that ice cream out of his hands, that whole thing was a building of trust, and I am sorry. And I felt that she she did not know, she thought he was dead. That betrayal, and then it followed by, what kind of sons did I raise? And JP said, you didn't raise us. And that's what I was like, oh, because that was a defining moment where it was, we are your kids biologically. That officially, for me, felt like Kate was on her own right there. So I just really loved how they kept putting in the ice cream all throughout the episodes. Ever since he brought up the ice cream, we've had a consistent scene of Tommy eating the ice cream. So that was one of the things. And one another thing, because I'm going to end up forgetting, oh Lord, I wrote it in the thing and I can't read my own handwriting, was the fact that, oh, sugar, Tommy at the very end with D-Mac, remember he was on the phone and he was like, you have to stay here because you talk too much. What was the thing that he was going to say, but he never finished? He was going to say, I love you. He never said it. He was about, and we could read it on his lips. It was like, but he stopped. So I wonder, psychologically, if he has to start separating these people. He's been hurt so much every time he said, I love you. Look at Lakeisha. She's dead. Look at Holly. Dead. Dad. Dead. Mom. Weird relationship, but it was not an I love you relationship. So I wonder, anytime he has to say I love you, it ends up going terribly wrong. Is that him protecting himself from getting too caught up with his family? Or is that him fighting his feelings? Because, I've felt this love that I didn't have before, but I can't say it yet. I don't know what it means. So I just thought that was something I wanted to throw in there because I was going to forget. Thank you.
I just want to make a comment, say that that's a very good observation, Dana, because I thought the same with that line. I'm glad you brought it up because I was wondering if somebody was going to bring that up. So that's a good one. Just one quick thing I want to say real quickly, and this is for Gary. I guess now we can confirm that Cousin Buddy is still at his eye appointment because we have not seen the return of that character yet, and I don't think that character is coming back. So that's at least one person Jenard doesn't have to worry about dealing with. So yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah, I don't know if he's coming back because Freddie Gibbs, he's got some stuff going on, in his life. So I don't know if they invited him back on to play that role, but yeah, like that would be interesting though. I would like to see the character return because it would make sense with Jenard. But
they kind of cut ties with anyone that didn't have this big overarching feeling. I think in a way that's how Walter had to go because in a way he was holding back the story. You can argue. You can't progress these two characters. Walter just looming by saying, I told you to do this. So they had to get rid of him. So I don't think the eye appointment is, I don't think it's going to be over. I think he's still there. There's no reason for him to come back unless it's the Rainbow Coalition of drug dealers.
Yeah, no, I agree because from episode 1 they also got rid of the Adrienne character, so I think they did just kind of get rid of a bunch of characters. Seamus as well got killed off, so so I think they're just doing away with a lot of stories and stuff to make room for whatever comes next. So yeah, and with that being said, let's get into our questions now. So the first one I wanted to ask you guys, so it plays into what I was saying about Vic. Is Vic a dead man walking now? Because he is now cooperating with the task force, but could you see him maybe having a change of heart? Could Claudia talk some sense into him? Do you think he'll retract his statements or whatever? Or is he going to go all the way with this? And if he goes all the way with this, does it mean that this is the end of the Vic character? Because you can't continue to have a show like this if Tommy Egan gets caught. It can't be a Tommy Egan jail story from now on, So at some point, something has to give, right? So is Vic a dead man walking now that he is cooperating with the task force? It's the question. So let me go to you first, Dana. What do you think about that?
I'm more concerned whether this was a sanctioned killing because, Ireland is always in the back of everyone's mind, even with the fact that he said to Brendan said to Claudia, you'll never be accepted because Ireland is the patriarchy. So I wonder if he has to still look out for Dublin. I don't think this was a sanctioned killing. I don't know. I'm not 1,000% sure. I do know that Doyle is the one who set everything up and he is part of Ireland. So maybe it is in a way. But with that excluding that, yes, he has to always look over his shoulder because we have Claudia. The thing about it is Claudia is smarter than Vic. So he may end up having to rely on Diamond, who is just as analytical too. Remember, Diamond is the brains, and Jenard is really like the what do you call it? The meat and potatoes, and I'm gonna stab you in the face kind of person. The weight. I don't know what the terminology is, but you get it. One's the thinker, one's the fighter, kind of maybe. But I wonder if he, in the terms of we're friends now, is going to start relying on Diamond in that case. I don't know, but I do know that he has to walk these streets very cautiously because you have the cops who are looking at him. We do know that Tommy, even though Tommy offered, hey, would you come and work for us? He meant that in like a condescending, you're not dog poop kind of way. So he does still hate Tommy at the end of the day. So he does have a lot of eyes that is on him. And on top of that, if they do bring in the other members of CBI that worked with Jenard, I don't know how they'll do that because they seem to hate him too. I don't think that they're going to be open about having him there. On top of that, we seem to forget Jenard does not like Vic, and Jenard does not like Tommy. He thought, let's go bring the group back together. I think in his mind, he's thinking of himself and Diamond. We're going to be together. And when you see Tommy, remember, he hates Tommy because he came from the very beginning. Oh my God, he's going to come and separate us. And I got to kill him. And then he sees Vic. I don't think it's going to be this kumbaya thing. So I do think that he is going to have, he's going to have to look behind and in the corners and everything else. This is not going to be some kind of easy transition. I mean, he has a lot to worry about on top of that. And then I also wonder, it's really easy to like say, I want to kill you, and then you actually do it. There are the mental consequences that I wonder if he is going to suffer with killing his father. Because at the end of the day, that was his father who was actually present in the home, technically. So I wonder where he's going to be at mentally because he killed his dad.
Yeah, that's another thing too, because Vic is in a very vulnerable and emotional state because he lost Gloria, and now he's like had to kill his own father, and his sister sold him out like to get him killed basically. So he's dealing with all of this mentally. So I mean, talking to the task force, it could have been out of plain emotion, and maybe once he thinks about it some more, he might regret it later, or he might take it back. Who knows? But yeah, it's going to be interesting because this task force against Tommy, I mean, usually these task force all fall apart, eventually in the Power universe. So I want to see where it goes. How far is this going to go? With Vic being a snitch. What do you think, Rich?
I think that snitches get stitches. And I think that, yes, he did sign his own death warrant. Now, let me explain a few things, first and foremost, about why I come to that conclusion. The hit that went down, when he approached Stacy at the end of the episode, and they had that newspaper clipping that showed the photo of the family. I mean, Dublin wanted to go after Walter. Now, I don't really know if they would believe, based off of that clipping, that the family is done for. They don't need to go after them anymore. I don't know. So we have to see where things go from there, because they were the ones that got Big Red involved in this. So, but they lost him, and they also lost Brendan. So I would like to see if there's some consequences, because Brendan wasn't supposed to get killed. That's why I say. So let's see where they go with that. But I still think that Vic is a dead man walking, because they've already told us that he's no match for Tommy. We saw that last season. Now, obviously, Tommy is going to be surprised if Vic ever was to open up to Tommy and tell him, because we got to remember, earlier this season, Tommy is the one that set things in motion to make Vic really question and want to go after Walter because of what happened with Gloria as well. So I kind of feel like Tommy would understand him deciding to set up his father. But him deciding to cross Tommy, there's no way Tommy's going to tolerate that. And then the other thing is that Vic made it very clear to Stacy at the end of the episode, I want my sister to go to jail. We already know that Tommy wants to kill Claudia. So I kind of feel like, Vic wants his sister to suffer, but he doesn't want to see her get killed. And he obviously wouldn't pull the trigger. So because that's a conflict right there that they're going to have a resolution for, because Tommy has already told the character, I want to kill you. You're dead. So I kind of feel like eventually that's going to happen. And once that happens, that kind of changes the entire situation, because Vic doesn't want his sister to get killed. He just wants her to go to jail and pay for everything that she's done. But if she gets killed, that'll be a far too easier way to end that. So I want to see what happens. But to answer your question, Gary, I don't think that Vic will have a change of heart ever. I don't think he's going to make up with Claudia ever, because when they had that conversation, when they both hugged each other and they both knew that, maybe I don't know if I could trust him, vice versa, so on and so forth. At that point, they knew, I think, that there were going to be a lot more issues between them. Getting Walter out of the picture was only one thing, but really, this is now about the brother and sister. So I personally don't think that he's ever going to have any type of reconciliation with her. But again, we have to see what happens, because they have a complex relationship. But I do believe that without question, Tommy is the star of the show. If this guy comes anywhere close to taking out Tommy, damn well they're not going to let that happen. So I'm just going to let you know, he can be successful in a shootout. Maybe he shoot Tommy somewhere. Tommy is, gets a shot and then he's fine, but he doesn't get killed. But there's no way in hell he's going to take out Tommy. But one thing I will say, and I did laugh about this earlier in the season, Tommy has been very nonchalant. Even when Diamond told him about the task force, he's been very nonchalant. Then in this episode, after the shootout happens at the cafe, he comes and meets Diamond. He's like, man, what's all these cops doing out here? Now he's freaking out about the cops. So let's see what happens once he finds out that, that they are a lot closer to him. The fact that they know that he's been spending time with Maria. All of this is something that's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. So I want to see how they explore that. But as for Vic, no, I think he's going to stand his ground and really try to expose Tommy just so he can get out of this. But I don't think the plan is going to work. So let's see what happens.
When he freaked out about the cops, I wonder in that moment, was he not just thinking about himself? Because, he's been in jail. He's tough. He's Tommy. Was he thinking about D-Mac? And that's why he flipped out.
Yeah.
That's why he was so nervous. And then that's why I love you came into play. He wanted to say I love you. He could not bring himself to say I love you. Mm-hmm. So, he has a little family. It's so cute. Gross.
Yeah, no, good points overall. Yeah, I like that. The whole Vic cooperating, that definitely caught me off guard, because it's like he had this real big moment of killing his father, and then now he's a snitch. Some people will completely dislike the character because of that, but I'm more so just curious to see where they take it now. I think it's a real interesting spin for the character, and they could put him in some interesting situations. They could have him wear a wire or something and go around some of the other characters. So yeah, I think it's going to be good to see play out. But I want to ask another question, because there's something that we haven't, I don't think any of us kind of brought it up yet. But in this episode, we do see that Maria, she actually had a prior relationship with a doctor, and they kind of broke up in this episode. And she's obviously thinking about Tommy. She's got Tommy on the mind, and she chose to break up with the doctor. And Miguel actually noticed that the doctor grabbed her during that argument. When they went outside, he kind of grabbed Maria, and he obviously didn't like that, and he went to go and torture that doctor later on. He hammered his hands so that he can't do surgeries anymore, so he's going to be Doctor Strange now or something, like, so so yeah, like, But Rich, you were gonna say something. You can go first, by the way. Like basically, I just want to know what you thought of that whole storyline, and is this a warning of what could happen with Tommy Egan? You know.
First and foremost, I do want to say it. What was so brilliant about that is that he used the awards the doctor actually won to break his hands. So I mean, listen, that's this excellent writing right there, you know, because it's very specific on the nose of what they did. But I think as a viewer, that was a warning to once again reiterate: Tommy should not be messing around with Maria. Miguel does not know this yet, and they are slowly building that tension until we find out. So I think that was the entire goal of that. And obviously, you know, I want to give a shout out to, there was a lot of comments in the chat specifically, but one of the comments specifically made mention about the grandmother, because the grandmother doesn't like Tommy. She's very suspicious of the character. Obviously, at some point, if she ever finds out that Maria is messing around with Tommy, that's going to be a major issue for them. So I just think that was put in there to just remind the viewers, Tommy is in a very dangerous situation with Maria, because he's right there with her. They're very close. So he needs to be concerned about Miguel. And as a viewer, I want to see what is going to happen when Miguel finds out, because eventually he is going to find out. That will 100% happen before this season is over, and I want to see how that impacts their relationship moving forward. But yeah, I think that was just put in there just to give you a warning, to remind you, Miguel is dangerous. We know that he has diabetes. He has his own health issues, but he still will take charge and do whatever he wants to do and needs to do to make his point. When he saw that his sister was in trouble, he figured she was in some type of trouble. He responded to that immediately. So let's see what happens from here.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Like they specifically put that in there to kind of, build up that tension of, just wait till Miguel finds out that Tommy's messing with his sister. So they showed that he's very protective of his sister. So that was a good thing for them to kind of show, because it definitely intensifies the relationship a lot more. But what's your thoughts on it, Dana? How did you feel about that scene?
I thought it gave Miguel something to do. Um, yeah, just overall, what else is he gonna do? Break God's hand. Okay. I saw that coming when he was with, when he was looking at the sister, because Miguel is someone who doesn't let anything go, even though he's like, you think he's this big bad boss and he has a boss and he like shrivels up when he's around him. It's so adorable. But I thought that, that was the most logical thing. I think the moment when he saw him grab her, oh, his hands are gone. It was kind of that Saw situation where he's like, oh, you use your hands to do things you're not supposed to, so I'm going to take them away from you. And you have a choice for when they grow back. Um, so I thought that was a really good scene. But here is the thing that I wonder is if this is going to go back to Maria. Is she going to find out what happens, because he's a surgeon? From my understanding, it's not like he's just, your regular old I'm an eye doctor, or, let me see that fungus there. He's a surgeon. And as you guys alluded, Doctor Strange, he needs his hands. So the hospital itself, this is also what I love about this season so far. You see the ripple effects. So you see how Maria has to take care of the gunshot victims from the diner. So anytime that there's a shooting, we're going to go to this hospital. It's a nice little universe they created. So I wonder how this impacts the hospital overall. Maria is going to definitely know about what's going on. He never met Miguel, which I find to be interesting. Miguel seems to be the type of person who you have to introduce him to, even for you just to go and get some ice cream together, because he is that protective or controlling. He walks that line of protective control. So in terms of Tommy, this is going to be a really interesting dynamic, because Tommy is someone who doesn't back down. We know that he can be crazy, and we know that Miguel can be crazy. So this I see is being really fun. You just can't come into the house and smash Tommy's hand like that. So I wonder how that's going to come into play. And then also, Tommy is doing work now with CBI, and Jenard is going to come back. Miguel does not like Jenard. So there's a whole ripple effect to this whole situation that is going to be really interesting for Miguel. But the scene overall didn't move me. It just seemed like something he would do to be the next step that he would do. You touch his sister, and it wasn't like the fact like, oh, he touched you, I don't know who he is. It was a very heated argument. Granted, he didn't hit her, but it was that quick reaction of like you grab someone's shoulder really quickly. So that he saw is the aggressive part, and I was okay with it. It really wasn't something that was prophetic. And then I kind of wonder when it comes into like he got his hand smashed. So is he going to go to the police? What's going to happen with him? Because he can no longer do surgery. He needs an explanation to the hospital as to what happened with his hand. So this could be fun, but I didn't feel anything at the moment for it.
Oh yeah, it could be fun. There could be some consequences for what Miguel did. Maybe Maria will get disciplined at the hospital or something. So I do think there's going to be some consequence possibly, but
he doesn't know that they're related. He did, because when he came in, he would have been like, "Oh my God, it's you." He didn't even do that.
Oh
he
yeah,
was like, here's my Rolex, here's my money, take everything. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they'll do it, but it could be. I want to see like some sort of consequence from Maria, especially like she needs to be upset about what happened and maybe confront her brother. I think that could be a good scene. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, just overall, have you noticed Miguel and Hands have a theme? Because the last time we saw Miguel, it was the freezing of the dude's hand, and then he smashed it, which I thought was brilliant. So, and then we have this, and he's smashing the guy's hand. Him and Hands. Yay! Maybe he'll be choked to death, but the hands. Because you usually are the downfall of what you portray, and he's portraying some hands.
Yeah, he's definitely got some hand torture fetish or something going on. But yeah, another thing that's kind of loosely related, like, so to me, it stood out a lot, and I feel like the writers are trying to tease us a little bit, but it stood out that victim of the shooting that came in, and she started talking about Felipe and everything, and then Maria says, I think she says their father was called Felipe too or something. So like to me, I'm wondering if the writers are trying to tease us and allude to some sort of connection to Felipe Lobos. Now I don't think the age matches up for him to be their father, because I don't think Miguel looks a bit too old to be Lobos's son. But they could be trying to signal something to us because Lobos was involved in the Mexican cartel as well. So I don't know. It just stood out to me a bit much. So I wanted to see what you guys thought of that, or if you picked up on that at all, or anything.
That was one name. That's one name I did not think about. That is a very interesting comment. Man, I'm very curious to know what the people have to say in the comments, whether or not they agree or disagree with that. But I know they like to make references to the original Power, because we already had the reference to the other character. I can't think of the name right now for some reason.
Yeah, that's another thing, Julio, because they mentioned Julio as well.
Yeah. So that's a very good observation. But yeah, like you said, I don't know if it matches up timeline wise in terms of the age of the kids. I mean, I don't know, but that's something to think about, and I'll be curious to see if they expand upon that. Like Dana said, I like how they showed that it was connected, where that shooting happened, and then immediately she gets taken to that same hospital. I did kind of think that could have been a little bit more to it, but I think Gary, you might be onto something, but we have to see what they got planned. But that's a very good observation.
Yeah, go ahead, Dana.
I interpreted the scene completely different. I was like, oh, she's seeing, how she said she was my age too, and her dad's name Felipe, like mine. I saw it as more like an inner reflection of what is my family doing? Because remember, her family are in connection is the reason, you sell drugs, shootouts, gang rivalry. It's all in the same dynamic. And so I thought she was like doing this reflective moment of, I have to get away from this in terms of what is my family doing? I have to get away from. And then when Tommy comes into the mix, is going to be more like, I can't be with you at all because I'm seeing the consequences of your actions and my brother's actions and my family's actions. So I have to remove myself. You mean grandma is even deeply embedded into this. So I saw this as, I'm not going to be a character that's going to last here long. Just because I'm looking at the consequences of what's going on. I did not even interpret Felipe Lobos at all. I was just like, Mexico, so maybe he was just a farmer in Mexico. I did not was like, oh, he's a drug cartel in Mexico. I mean, you can also argue that fact, but I didn't want to be like stereotyping. But Lobos, yeah, wow. Boop, you're smart.
Yeah, I just want to say real quickly, I also thought the same as you, Dana. I thought that was a reflection on her being, she needs to get out of this life, but she's still texting Tommy. So I don't know what's going to happen with that.
But the case, didn't the guy come in before? See, that was the thing. She was all smiley and dandy, and then the girl came in.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Because then remember, she was sullen and sad, and that's when she had the argument with the boyfriend. And that's when she left with Miguel. So
I think we're gonna have to see how she interacts with Tommy in the next episode. She obviously doesn't know. But no, she doesn't know that this is connected to anything that Tommy is doing yet. So that's the other thing.
She's not dumb because remember Tommy got shot, and it was in their presence, and it was a shootout. She's not dumb. And she kept saying, I don't get around, I don't hang out with guys like you. I'm not like other girls. Not once did she bring up, oh, I have a man. It was, I'm not that kind of girl. That whole thing. And unless this was just filmed for the trailer, because we've seen a lot of instances where there's scenes from a trailer that is not in the actual show or the movie.
Yeah.
She, from my recall, she gets out of the bed and that's when she kisses Tommy. So she's with Tommy.
Okay, yeah. See, yeah.
So I wonder, when does she grow a conscience? Or your theory seems to work better because maybe she just doesn't grow that conscience, and she's like, Tommy.
At some point, I think that's going to be a test. But let me just say this one last thing because I know Gary probably had another question. I do want to say I want to give a shout out because we had a couple of comments again last week, and there was a very brilliant comment made that they don't know if they fully trust the Maria character. Think about when they had that whole driving, when he did the driving with her, and she obviously took the wheel. She said, oh, well, this isn't the first time that I've driven. So kind of allude to there's more to this character that we don't really know about besides the fact that she is a nurse and all this other stuff. And they were raising the question is that a reason to trust the character? So I think that is a great question. And I will look forward to seeing as Tommy gets closer to her, because my assumption is that every person, they have a bad side to them as well. They have something about them that they've also done that is not good. So I will be very curious to see if they expand upon that, if they reveal more about the character. But I thought that was an interesting comment that was made because, yeah, there's more to this character than meets the eye, but we'll have to wait and see where they're going with that.
I think you're right. I think Maria is hiding something. Like she's hiding some demons because she has this like cheerful demeanor about her, and like a lot of times when people are that cheery, like they have a dark side or they're dealing with something, and they're just putting on this cheerful exterior to kind of throw people off or hide their pain or whatever. So I do think that she is hiding something and she has secrets. So I completely agree with that. But yeah, before I move on to the next question, did you have anything else to add? Anything else you wanted to mention on that?
Oh no.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I have a few questions. Let me see. What should I do? Okay, so DMAC has been sent away. Do you see the character being fully reformed? Is this youth academy going to work for the character? And is he going to actually take what Tommy has done for him on board? Is he going to reflect on what he's done in killing a cop? And is he going to maybe change? We might even see his progression at the youth academy, and see him interacting with other people and maybe changing a little. Do you think that that is going to be the case for him, or do you see him going, right back to the streets whenever he does get free from this youth academy? So, what do you think is in the future for DMAC? Is the question. And who did I go to first last time? I don't even remember. I'm going to go to you first, Dana. What do you think about that?
I have multiple things that I really wish would happen all at the same time. Like I'm cool if like they find him and then they kill him at the camp. So I'm like I'm cool with that because remember we have not had our innocent yet, and I need my body. I need that death. So he would
Streets
be
need a
an
body.
innocent, and the streets do need a body, and even though he was the one who killed a cop, he still is kind of innocent in this entire situation. I mean, all we have left is him and JP or Maria. Maria could die. Sorry. So, but you remember they kept him alive for a reason, and that is why we had this whole interview was like, why is he alive and not dead? Um, I want him to be reformed and to do the straight and narrow and to be like the businessman separate from the businessman. But I do feel that it would be in the best interest of the overall story if we have a bit of both. He is reformed in terms of he's not that wild child, I want to see Genesis and why won't you let me out the house? He has meaning and purpose and principles behind him. He does go forth and gets that education, but he can use that education in the same way that Tariq does and be the money man of the group, be the brains of that operation. So that would be, I think, a great reason to one, you keep him on the show and he has meaning and purpose. And so that I feel would be amazing. And if Kate doesn't end up, accidentally killing herself with an overdose, that reunion between them could be exceptional. And he never used his $20, so he can give her her $20 back. So that works for everyone. I would like that very much so, if that would just happen.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility where DMAC becomes like the brains or an oracle type character where he gives them advice on what they can do and stuff, and like because obviously he was showing them how to do the social media stuff, so he's already kind of talented in that respect. But go ahead, Dana.
One more thing. We're going to go just the dumbass route for a minute. What happens if he tries to start up his own little thing at the school? Where he tries to start his own little operation there. And it just makes things even worse. Because, he wants to be a part of the street. So he could still do that. But I don't know how secure and what's going on with the school. But any school is not 1,000% secure. There are things that kids can get into and get away with. So I do wonder if he is going to be like, I'm a man and start his own little thing there. But and those kids, they'll end up with their own little product and he's trying to sell everything and it'll just be a mess. But also just another thing, where was the school for Tariq? Because it seems like Tommy is doing a lot for DMAC. But where was this for Tariq? Like, granted, he gave him advice as well, but he definitely needed a reform school. So, boo.
Yeah, Yeah, that's true. I guess it's because Tariq had his father, and his father kind of took care of that until he died. But yeah, Tommy could have played a more active role in Tariq's childhood to help steer him away from the direction he went in. But yeah, I guess that's what he's kind of trying to learn from at this moment. But I
Did
do
he
like what
ever
you
tell
said.
Tariq he loved him?
I don't recall actually. I don't recall if he did.
Mm, mm, mm.
Hey,
Because they had some heart to hearts. Even in the last, what was it? The finale of the other Power. I don't recall him being like, "I love you, kid."
yeah, no, because remember
He would.
Tommy was angry at him and he held him over the balcony or whatever, trying to hurt him. So yeah, they had a rocky relationship. But I do want to say that I like what you said about DMAC possibly selling at the youth academy. That would be interesting because the interesting thing behind that would be where would he get it from? And the like Big Smurf was the one who took him there, so it could be a situation where Tommy asks Smurf to check on DMAC or basically like bring him stuff or whatever, and maybe DMAC strikes some deal with Big Smurf, and we know Tommy is not going to be happy about that, so that could create some tension within the group if that was the case. So that
Might be
is
the
a
other
good
kids.
that yeah.
It might be. What's that white boy name from the other Power?
Which one?
Braden.
It could be Braden Jr. Jr. Could be like, "Hey, see Mac money? I know where we can get some stuff."
Yeah, could be that too. He could meet someone in there and they set up together. But then it starts to seem a bit like the same thing that happened on Ghost. So I don't know if they're gonna go in that direction,
That's true. It's
but
too repetitive, and we kind of got rid of that. So yeah, I don't want to just be smart and come back and help the family business.
exactly. But Rich, get in here. What do you think about the whole DMAC thing? Do you think he's gonna change? Do you think he's gonna still crave the streets regardless? What do you think about it?
Well, one thing that I know for sure, DMAC is going to get a haircut because they alluded to the fact that Genesis wanted him to be clean cut. So I assume the character will get a bit of a transformation while he is at the academy. Get a nice little cut, a fade, whatever he needs to get. But to answer the question, that's a very interesting comment you made about him potentially cutting a deal with Big Smurf. I just want to say right now, they made it clear because Tommy said when he talked to DMAC, will have eyes on you at all times. So that kind of makes me believe that they're not going to allow him to do anything that he shouldn't be doing while he's there. We have to see how that pans out. But one thing I do want to say is just to really sell the fact that he is away, I don't want to see this character again the rest of the season. If we see him in the finale, that's fine. But I would prefer we just see him spend some time away. They come back to him maybe next season. And at that point, that's when Tommy decides that he can come back at that point. That, I think, would be a good way to handle that. They don't need to rush for him to return. But I do think he is going to, try to change his ways. But I think this all will hinge upon when he comes back and he sees the state that Kate is in. Because obviously, if she continues to use, that's going to impact how she is, how she reacts to everybody else. So she may not be the same loving, caring person that she is when he returns. And then she may be hitting him up, asking him for more than $20. And okay, that's a bit of a problem there. So we have to see what happens. But I kind of feel like her deciding to use again, it's going to have a ripple effect on not just DMAC when he returns, but I also feel the way that Tommy and JP interact, because you remember JP wanted to tell her what happened, and Tommy's like, "No, you're not going to do that because she likes to talk." And then, when they had that whole scene at the end with the argument, and then they both stood up and said, no, it's best that it was handled this way. She kind of felt betrayal with that entire situation. And I kind of feel like, well, if something was to happen to her, she ODs or whatever, yeah, I kind of feel like they would feel a type of way. Well, I know that JP would feel pretty bad about that. Because the thing is this, we have to see what happens in the next episode. They haven't noticed that she's gone back to using again yet. So we need to see how that progresses the storyline. But to answer the question, I think D-Mac is going to try to change his ways because he has no choice but to. But the character is definitely going to come back different the next time we see him, I feel. Maybe a little bit more mature, definitely clean cut. He's not going to have the dreads like he has now. And but we'll see what happens when he actually gets back. And then he sees his friend Marshall, who was still out there on those streets. He sees Genesis is still out there. I want to see how those interactions are when he returns, because he's always going to be wanting to get back to that, especially when he sees his best friend is out there still doing this stuff. So stay tuned.
Yeah, you know what? I like what you said about, maybe the character actually going away for a while and then we come back to him later when he's already changed, kind of. Like I would like that. And the way this episode was kind of structured, it seems like they were kind of trying to put away some of the storylines to make room for something else. So like I could totally see them maybe, just shelving DMAC a little bit for until later on. So yeah, what you said, that kind of would make sense if it was the case, if we don't see the character for some time and then he comes back. And that would be, interesting whenever he does come back, because of course, he has his relationship with his father too. So we can see how it affects that relationship. And then, like you said, his friends, how will they interact with him if he changes? Genesis as well. What if Genesis gets with Marshall or whatever his friend was called? Something like that could happen. Who knows? But yeah, interesting points from both. But let's get one more question in here, and then we'll head out. But what do you think Diamond is going to end up having to save Jenard? What do you see happening now? Because we see Jenard slipping, he's slipping further away from being a key player. His team is doubting him already as well, because he had to beg them basically to stay loyal to him. So he's kind of slipping right now. And I'm wondering if they're gonna, now that there is the whole coalition and a bit of unity going on, are his partners gonna tell Diamond what's happening with him as well? And what is Diamond's reaction gonna be when he finds out that Jenard is, he's on heroin and everything? So, Rich, what do you think about that?
Well, first and foremost, let's go back to what happened in their father in this episode. Diamond pretty much reached out to Shanti, and that was how he got the message to Jenard. So obviously, yeah, at the end of this episode, they do have a bit of a reconciliation, and he decides to bring him back in CBI to try to get him involved again. What I find very interesting, though, is that Shanti suspects that Jenard is on something. Did not tell this to Diamond. And the thing is that Diamond should notice this. Now that his brother's going to be around him, he should notice this over time. So I'm waiting to see what his reaction is going to be once he notices this. But the problem is that, like Dana already said, and you said, Jenard is a mess right now. He has all these things going on. The drug habit is definitely the worst, because it means his behavior is going to be a lot more erratic, and he's going to be doing a lot of other things. But he's also bringing more danger to them, because I thought to myself, even if Jenard does go into some rehab and he gets out of rehab, the thing is that think of all the bad decisions that he has made while he has been struggling with all this stuff with the drugs, the money, so on and so forth, the bad relationships that he has created because of his actions. So I would imagine a scene where even if Jenard does redeem himself, he gets off drugs, he gets out of jail, he could still very well get shot by the same people who he made angry because of his other decisions. Because, you killed little K. Obviously, that other guy is still angry, the one that left and they went to the RDs. So that is the issue. Like, all of this stuff he has, he can't get away from. He can go into rehab, right, and try to get out of heroin. But I think at the end of the day, the streets are going to catch up with Jenard, because you know what? The streets need a body, right? So I kind of feel like he is, either way, he's in a bad situation, which is unfortunate because Chris Lofton has done a hell of a job with the character this season. But I kind of feel like when he got the chain in this episode, I was like, yeah, this is not good, because now you're getting other people involved in what's happening to you. And there's going to be consequences for this. Even when he went back to his neighborhood prior to getting that chain, nobody wanted him there. Nobody welcomed him there either. You saw how the people were reacting when they saw him walking there. So that's why I said, even if he does get out of this situation with the drugs, it's just a really bad situation. But more than anything else, this is done for the development of Diamond as a character, because Diamond, as it was alluded to in this episode, he's always been the strongest son, right? He's always been able to deal with whatever came his way. He's done time, 15 years in jail, so on and so forth. But the problem is that this is going to create a ripple effect for him. And one last point that I do want to mention, because this is important. In this episode, when D-Mac had the situation, Diamond told him, hey, Tommy, you're going to have to deal with the situation, or I'm going to have to deal with it. So I think that is a foreshadowing of when Tommy sees Jenard as having these issues, he's going to come to Diamond and say, Diamond, this is your brother. You're going to have to deal with this situation, or I'm going to have to deal with it. I think that was done intentionally to let you know ahead of time that Diamond is going to have to deal with his brother at some point. I don't know if it's going to be the New Jack City moment that Dana and I always talk about. I don't want it to get to that point, but man, I don't know what's going to happen. But either way, to answer your question, Gary, is Diamond going to save his brother? I think he's going to have to, but I do think we're going to see a lot more emotion come out of Diamond, because they've already alluded to in the interview that Dana had that this season he really does a great job acting. So I need to see more of that, and I think we're going to see more of that now that stuff is starting to happen to his brother, because he knows what the promise that it was to his father said. His father's last wish to him was to take care of his brother. He knows that. He did not tell Jenard that his father wants him to do that. He just knows that. So that's why I said I want to see what happens. But things are definitely going to get a lot more challenging for him in the next couple episodes, I would say, for the rest of the season and moving forward. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, definitely. I had something I was gonna say as a follow-up, but I forgot. I forgot. It completely slipped my head. But something you mentioned I wanted to talk about, but I'm gonna go straight to Dana. Maybe I'll remember in a sec. But go ahead, Dana. What do you think about Jenard? Is Diamond gonna save him?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier when I stated, when the dad said, "Take care of your brother," it was the same energy as "I'll be right back." Yeah, someone's not going to make it in that relationship. When it happens, I don't know, but I do know that they will have to start turning on each other. Well, they already did, but it's going to come down to those two. And I think that Diamond might have to take out Jenard. At this moment in time, Jenard is not the leader that he was in season 1, episode 1. He's developed not only this drug addiction, before that, he is owing everybody money. And remember, Merkovich, "Where's my money?" was the text before he came in and robbed Manny. So it's just too many complications, and it's too much of a stress with him. When they alluded to, you said it's the conversation between Diamond and Tommy about, did you take care of D-Mac? I didn't originally view it as this is going to come back to him, and therefore he's going to ask, did you take care of Jenard? But that is a very interesting way of how it is going to go down. I feel he is a lot sorry, he is a liability at this moment. The Serbs, they're not all dead. I don't strongly believe. We have Merkovich sitting around there saying, "Where's my money?" So you have that, and I said before, the gang split up, which is why you're having all of these reckless drive-bys and these reckless shoot up the diner situation. Um, and it's going to get even worse and it's going to escalate. And I feel that with everyone and everything being more fractured, we do have the task force. And even though Stacy is so concerned with we got to get Tommy, just turning into a whole Angela, we got to get Ghost situation. But yeah, we have to get Tommy. That I wonder how will that impact their jobs, because there might be even more deaths to contend with, you know. So this should be a very interesting dynamic, but I just don't see a way out for Jenard. He's like, again, too much liability to the point where I don't know who's even safe going to be his brother. Yeah, that's nice and poetic, but at this moment, it could be Pookie down the street who just happened to be in the other gang, that you took money from. And then remember when he robbed Manny in the car, where did those drugs come from? Who is Manny's connect? So if you go to that connect, well, I was robbed. Who was you robbed by? Again, she's not dead, or he, they, whatever. Sorry, they're not dead. They know, it was Jenard and the whole neighborhood. It wasn't like a secluded block at the end of the street with the lights off. This was broad daylight. Which the whole time I was just wondering, why you not just run out the car and be like, help? Because the whole member, he made this grand entrance of like, yeah, I'm here. What you gonna do about it? So everyone knows that it's him. It's the worst kept secret ever. So he is not gonna, I do not feel that he is gonna make it out at all. There's no reason for him at this point, unless you just want him to just be running from everybody in every episode. So someone's coming after him. And Manny and their people are coming after him as well. He just keeps adding on to the enemy list. So, yeah, at this point, I don't even think Diamond has to worry about it, because he gone. Rest in peace.
I hope not. Like, I actually want Jenard to survive, just because the actor has been so incredible this season. Like, I want to see the character stick around, but heroin, that is a very destructive path. So I just don't see, how he's going to be able to sustain himself as a character for too much longer. But but yeah, great points. And I can't remember if it was you, Dana, or Rich, but one of you mentioned the chain earlier that he took from, because he took the drugs and the chain, and then now he's given the chain to the heroin dude, the white guy. So I'm wondering if that is going to, if somebody's going to recognize that chain on the heroin addict, and if that's going to draw some sort of connection. Go ahead, Rich.
And one other point that I did want to mention, because we didn't mention this, the other guy in command in Jenard's crew, he was the first one to notice the chain and said, "Hey, that's Manny's chain." And then Jenard said, "No, this is my chain. What are you talking about?" So they definitely know, that guy, at least that guy knows, and is very suspicious still of Jenard. So I'll be very curious to see what happens. But obviously, there's a lot of drama that Jenard is bringing to CBI with Diamond, for Diamond to have to deal with. And again, I do want to see who is in charge of this RD group, this other gang that they have defected to, because I'm assuming that there is somebody in charge of that we haven't met yet. So that could be another character that we're going to meet in the future, because they're going to have to deal with that group at some point. They can't be just going into diners shooting up, everything in the diner. So they're going to have to deal with them as well at some point.
This is Jamaicans.
Oh, really?
We can finally get our Jamaicans. We never got our Jamaicans. It's the Jamaicans.
Hey, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Who was the the guy you said was with the Boston Celtics? Who is that dude again? Because I kept getting mixed up. I thought he was like the head of the RDs. But is he in a different gang?
I mean, I would have to go back and rewatch that because I just was interested that they introduced the character. His name is King Kilo. But the other thing, I am glad that you brought that up because there is one thing I did want to say. So he said in order to do that deal, he wants half of the business in the jails. You know why that's a problem? Because Rojas already agreed to back off and let them do what they're doing. So what's going to happen when he finds out about this? Somebody's going to be getting cut short with this deal. So I kind of feel like they're going to have some more conflict with Rojas, I think, as a result of this, if they agree to that and then everything goes through, because I don't know how fast it's going to go through. But this is a lot of things to watch out for because there's going to be some problems. And that character introduced for a reason. So we have to see where they're going with that.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent.
Yeah, that was the guy who was in the in jail who called him on the phone, King Kilo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that big dude. And then also remember, kind of to speak on that as well. Remember, they have to give up half of the business and half of the joint, like the whole joint, and half the business. So it's not like everyone. Again, it's not Rainbow Coalition. People are out. They're in it for themselves. Oh. I wonder what's going to go on. And then I don't think King Kilo is going to deal with all of that shenanigans that Jenard is going through. And, if Yo-Yo knows what's going on, and he's not even with the group no more, that means people are talking. It's very easy for King Kilo to be like, well, this is not right. Put out a hit.
Yeah, indeed, and it also brings up something I believe Richard said from last week with the CEO. So Diamond, he needs to tread very carefully, with how he treats this CO that he's involved with because she's allowing all of this to happen. So go ahead, Richard.
I'm telling you right now, Diamond will mess that up because we didn't see we obviously we didn't see Leon in this episode. You already know that Leon's mom got something for Diamond. So I kind of feel like he's going to mess that up. I think we can see that coming, and then that's what the ripple effect is going to be as a result of that, because up until this point, they have betrayed Diamond. He hasn't really made any mistakes. So he is going to slip up on that, though. So I stay tuned for that because I see it coming.
Well, he made a mistake with, the grandma. Remember the grandma? That was his mistake. No, that was Jenard.
Yeah, that's Jenard.
Remember?
Yeah.
Chewy.
Wait a second. But wait a second. See, you reminded me of another person Jenard needs to worry about, and that's the grandmother. So yeah, Jenard is a mess. He's a mess of a man. That's
ghetto.
what we'll call him.
Ghetto.
Yeah, he's got a lot of beef right now, so he needs to watch his back. But yeah, let's get to final thoughts because we do have to go. So, anything we didn't mention or any other theories you have that you want to bring up, now is the time to do so. And Dana's mic is already open. So
it is? I didn't even know it was open. No, that, the whole situation, I think we kind of covered everything. Genesis was looking for him and he never came. And then you have the best friend. So I want to know whether or not, because the streets are talking, and Kate's all high in a hot mess, will the message be like, oh, he's dead? Will it get out that way and everyone will think he's dead? And then it'll be like another, maybe Kate has some kind of conscience or something in her midst of grief, goes to the police. And then you have to question why now, because, she's known of the people that he's killed. So I wonder if she will somehow go to the police. And we already know the task force is trying to build a case. So now it's like, where's DMAC? And that can be the downfall of this case being fake. Not fake, but this case, going away. Is if, for example, Kate thinks that he's dead. Upon further investigation, we find out that he's just at their school. So therefore, I wonder if that kind of puts a kink in there, like you know what I mean? It kind of pokes holes in their case in terms of, Tommy's some big mastermind killer, because at this moment they do have his prints, but they don't have ties to anything. They have ties to Vic killing that other guy. So I just wonder what could go on, because we've seen multiple times with, even Ghost going to jail, he came out. Tariq, jail, came out. So, and everyone's task force seemed to just fall apart. So will Kate providing fake information make them, kind of again poke the holes in the story, in this case ends up falling apart?
Yeah, yeah, that's a possibility. And yeah, we have seen characters, go away to prison and then come out. So that is a direction they could choose to go. I recall even Tommy, I think in the second season of Power, I think it was the first or second, he actually was in prison for a short time, and Ghost kind of helped him get out. So yeah, they've had situations where they put the main characters in. Um, so yeah, that could be interesting to see. So, but Rich, do you have any final thoughts of your own to add, or any other theories?
Oh no, I just think it was an excellent episode. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jenard coming back into the group means for other characters. We do know that Tommy does not really get along with Jenard, but one other thing we do know is that Jenard did play a role in D-Mac getting shot last season. And we know that JP was very angry about that situation, and he was looking for who did that. So that is one thing I'm very curious to see if they have an interaction in the future about that. So stay tuned. But no, overall, excellent episode, and I cannot wait to see what happens next week.
No, indeed, indeed. And yeah, I agree. That could be a interesting interaction with Jenard. Um, so my final thoughts, basically, first of all, like I really feel like the way this episode was, like it definitely feels like they're trying to clean up some of the loose threads and put some stories to bed and make room for something bigger. So I'm really curious about how this story is now going to expand. And I know that it can be interesting to always talk about theories of old characters and stuff like that. But to me, I don't know. It just feels like they're really trying to tease some big return, or some big reveal or something. And I say that just because of what I mentioned earlier with the Lobos. And by the way, I think you two were right about the meaning of the scene, where it's connecting how Maria feels about her situation and stuff. I do think that was the case, but I also think it could be a tease too. It could be both. And then the fact that they had the connection with Julio, and I just feel like there's something coming from the past. I feel like there's something from Tommy's past that's going to be coming back in this next half of the season. And I would like to remind everyone that Cristobal is still out there somewhere. And then also we're probably going to see Two Bit at some point too, maybe. So there's some things from Tommy's past that could creep up, and I just feel like they keep teasing us. They keep saying stuff like ghosts. They keep mentioning old things, and I just feel like they're setting up something big for this next half of the season, and I can't wait to see what it is. So those are my final thoughts on that. Um, and yeah, with that being said, that is going to be it for this week. We'll be back next week, of course, to recap episode 6. I don't know if there's any. Is there like a break this season? I don't even know. Does
Oh
anyone
yeah,
know if there's a break?
well, Power, they always got to have some type of a break, So yeah, there is probably going to be a break. I don't know which episode it's going to be. Maybe it's the next episode or a couple episodes before the finale, but we'll find out in the next couple of weeks for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out. As soon as we know, we'll let you guys know. But yeah, we'll be back to recap the next episode. Until then, take care, everyone. Stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Looking forward to the comments.